B is for battle cry, a Civil War alphabet. A is for Abraham Lincoln.
He was called Honest Abe, the rail splitter too, but through the years he became so much more. The boy who loved to read became the president who led our country through the Civil War.
B is for battles.
Battles were fought in the North and in the South, at crossroads, creeks and railroad towns. Cannons fired and smoke filled up the air as soldiers charged across the ground.
C is for Confederacy.
The Southern Cross was the symbol for the states in the South, known as the Confederacy. Folks were loyal to their states and not the USA, so they formed their own country.
D is for diseases.
Soldiers were sick with the measles and the pox. Illness struck many a courageous soul. It wasn't only guns that killed the boys and men. Diseases took a mighty toll.
E is for Emancipation Proclamation.
Important words were written on paper by a man who had this goal in mind. Sweet freedom for those who were slaves. This document Abe Lincoln did sign.
F is for Fort Sumter.
The war began in April of 1861 when shells hit Fort Sumter before dawn. The fort was short of ammunition, men and supplies, and soon the Union soldiers were gone.
G is for Gettysburg.
A 3-day battle was fought at Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. It was a small town. Thousands of soldiers fell during the fight and are buried in that hallowed ground.
H is for hardtack.
Rations of hardtack, crackers hard as rocks. The soldiers would often break them up. They'd dunk them in their coffee or stir them in their soup. Sometimes weevils floated to the top.
I is for ironclads.
Sailors fought in wooden ships for many centuries until the Civil War, when iron was placed on the outside of the hull and the ironclad ship was born.
J is for Jefferson Davis.
Jefferson Davis was the only president of the Confederate States. He led his new country in a war against the North till the surrender on that April day.
K is for Kepi.
Men wore kepis perched upon their heads. Soldiers wore them in rain or shine. Whether they were from the north or from the south, the men looked like soldiers so fine.
L is for letters.
Dearest Papa, we wish that you were home. We miss you more than words can say. Mama's helping me to spell, and she sends her love. We pray you'll walk through the door someday.
M is for music.
Soldiers marched to the beat of the fife and the drum, or whistled as they stood in line. Some had tears in their eyes as they sang of Home Sweet Home and the girls that they had left behind.
N is for nurses.
Women served as nurses in the Civil War, angels of the battlefield. They cared for the sick and the wounded men. Their skills helped the soldiers heal.
O is for officers.
Officers gave orders to all the men. They told the soldiers when to fire. Captains, majors, and generals too. The best ones were loved and admired.
P is for prisoners of war.
Many a soldier from the north and from the south were taken as prisoners of war. Some kept in confinement, others were exchanged, but many died before peace was restored.
Q is for quartermaster.
The quartermaster's job was to supply the army's needs. Wagons traveled many miles over the ground, taking rations to the soldiers and hay for the mules. Ammunition must be hauled around.
R is for rebel yell.
Yelling like demons, rebels went on the attack, striking terror in the enemy's eyes. Hollering, whooping, and shouting through the ranks, the Southern soldiers shrieked out their cries.
S is for spies.
Wild Rose was a lady who spied for the South. There were more who also did the same. Harriet Tubman passed information to the North. Many others will never know their names.
T is for trains.
Trains carried soldiers to the battlefields. Tracks crisscrossed the South and the North. Telegraph wires stretched across the land, and messages were sent back and forth.
U is for Union.
The Union was made up of the northern states. There were 23 in all. The soldiers fought to keep their country as one, and after 4 years the South did fall.
V is for Vicksburg.
Vicksburg families huddled inside caves. Shells were bursting and starvation was near. The Union Army had put the city under siege. For many weeks the people lived in fear.
W is for women.
Some disguised themselves as soldiers and fought beside the men. Some stayed home and worked upon the farms. Others nursed the sick and wounded and scrounged for supplies. They tried to keep their families safe from harm.
X is for Appomattox.
The Civil War battles lasted 4 long years. The rebel soldiers had empty haversacks. General Lee surrendered to General Grant in a village called Appomattox.
Y is for Yankee.
A Yankee was a soldier who fought for the North. To preserve his country was his goal. His president was Lincoln, who wanted all to be free. The Yanks won, but it took a mighty toll.
Z is for Zouaves.
Some had jackets trimmed in yellow and baggy red pants. These brightly dressed soldiers had a name. Zouaves they were called in the North and in the South, and in the end they gained great fame.